Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock. We will call this meeting of the Board of Trustees of Jasper Independent School District to order. We have all 7 members here, so we definitely have a quorum. First item of business, as always, is any electronic devices you may have on your person. I've always wanted to say that. Please silence them now. And with that, we're going to get right on into our meeting. And first up, we have our pledge from Parnell Elementary, Mr. Davis.
Good evening. So I actually said he's a little nervous, so I told him I'm stay right here with you. Sure. Tonight we have Axel Little-Real, and then we have Raymond Morrissey. Axel is a 4th grade student on our campus. He's the son of Little-Real. He is an honor roll student. His favorite subject is science. He enjoys playing soccer and baseball, and he loves to draw and build things with Legos. And we have Raymond Morrissey. She's the daughter of Shawanda and Terrence Scott. She enjoys cheerleading and softball, and her favorite subjects in school are math and science. She's a conscientious student who is always giving her best and is a shining star for Parnell Elementary. Please stand with us.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you very much. Okay, if y'all will remain standing for our prayer. Mr. Vickers, do you mind leading us in prayer, please?
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather tonight and to ask for your leadership and guidance as we make decisions and as the board makes decisions on behalf of our district. Father, we ask that you would be with every decision that they make, that they would make it in your wisdom. Father, we thank you for each of the families and children that are represented here and those in this district, and we ask that you would watch over them and their endeavors in the days to come. Father, again, we thank you for the opportunity to be able to be in a country that is free and has the rights and opportunities to be able to turn to you for help. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Our next item of business, having been in school for slightly more than a month, would be we're back in the routine of employee recognitions. And with that, Mr. Typo will read those nominations.
All right, we have 4 that received the Believe Award this month from 3 different campuses. First, we have Miss Kara Ellsberg.
Front and center.
Kara is, and I'll read each of the nominations. Kara is our math computer lab aide, and she has gone above and beyond to help a student who is with her every day to earn credit for 7th grade. The student has been retained twice and is a reluctant learner and struggles with school. Kara has set up and organized his day to help him adjust and stay on top of him like a personal classroom teacher. She encourages, helps, and pushes him to do better every day and not slack up or give up. She sees the end goal and truly believes that with hard work, her student will make it to high school and graduate with her peers. She was nominated by Mr. Rodney Harrington. Next we have Mr. Steve Smith from Jasper High School. Mr. Smith's not with us.
Mr. Smith is unable to be present tonight, so accepting his award on his behalf.
I still read his nomination. Coach Smith is an integral part of this school district and community. He gives so much of his time, not only for his department, but also FFA, welding, athletics, and anyone in the district that needs help. He is very good with his students and teaches them not only about construction technology, but life lessons, which will come back tenfold as a very productive citizens of Jasper. He was nominated by Miss Mary Ann Bowry. Next, we have Miss Tennille Wilgus. Oh my gosh, there is so much to say about all the things that Miss Wilgus does each day that goes above and beyond her job duties. She is very talented and very organized. All of these qualities make her the perfect person for the front office. She keeps impeccable attendance records, and her desk is always very organized. Thanks to her artistic talents, we now have the fish tank in the front office and a bulletin board in the lounge with balloons and staff birthdays listed. We are so lucky to have her, and Miss Wilgus was nominated by Miss Karen Byerly. And last, we have Miss Cassandra Lane. Miss Lane is very helpful in every class that she is in at the time. She truly wants the students to be successful and works towards making them love school. Employees like her are very valuable and deserve recognition. She was nominated by Miss Bonnie Maines.
Okay, at this time, we're going to make a slight adjustment to the agenda. We have a special presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll take care of that action item now, and then we'll move on with the agenda as posted, just so those who are here for that item can be free to leave and not feel like you've been euthanized after the meeting. So with that, we're going to move down to business action. Action item 6A, consider and if appropriate, approve donation from the baseball boosters. Ms. Horton?
The district has received a donation in the amount of $12,036 to add a trust to the baseball scoreboard. The donation is from the Baseball Booster Club. In accordance with our board policy CDC local, board approval is required in order to accept a donation of $2,500 or more. At this time, administration recommends approval of the donation of the Baseball Booster Club.
We have a recommendation from administration to accept the donation from baseball boosters as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Dr. Van Kamak, second Mr. Mark Duran. Any discussion? If none, all in favor of the motion, show of right hand. All opposed, like sign. It carries 7-0. Thank you very much, and thank you to the baseball boosters. So we want to get a photo off, right? Yes. Come on.
I insisted.
You should have, right? Go for it. Right here, folks.
Down on the lower level.
Okay. Now we get back into our normal posted agenda. Our next item will be open forum. I don't have no one registered to speak, so there'll be no public commentary tonight. Our next item will be consent agenda. Does any member need any item pulled for consideration? If none, do we have a motion to accept?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Webb, second by Ms. Martindale. Any discussion? If none, all in favor, show of right hand. All opposed, like sign. It carries 7-0. Thank you much. Our next item will be business action item B, consider and if appropriate, approve the budget amendment. Ms. Horton?
In the board package, you have a copy of the budget amendment number 1902, and this is for the donation from the booster clubs to purchase the truss for the scoreboard. It increases local revenue in Fund 199 by $12,036, and also increases Function 36 by the same amount for the expenditure part. At this time, I recommend approval of the budget amendment number 1902 as presented.
We have a recommendation from administration to approve the budget amendment number 19-02 as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Is that Steve? Yeah. Thank you. We have a motion by Dr. K-Mac, a second by Mr. Martinez. Any discussion? If none, all in favor, show of right hand. Any opposed, like sign, and it carries 7-0. Thank you. The next action item will be to consider and if appropriate, approve appointments. Mr. Sabo?
The Campus Selection Committee reviewed applications and conducted interviews. The committee made a recommendation to administration. Attached is the recommendation for professional personnel for consideration of appointment. Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the recommendation for professional personnel for Ms. Gretchen Ponder, Masters of Ed, Lamar University. She'll be teaching 6th grade science at Jasper Junior.
We have a recommendation from administration to approve the professional personnel appointment as presented. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Duran, second by Ms. Martindale. Any discussion? If none, all in favor of the motion, show of right hand. All opposed, like sign. There are none. It carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Our next action item will be to consider and if appropriate, approve the MOU with Texas A&M AgriLife extension. Mr. Sabo?
Under board policy GNC legal, for any educational partnership between a district and community college or college district, an agreement must be approved by the board or designee of both the district and the college district. The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Services Rural Student Success Initiative is an initiative through the Greater Texas Foundation. The counties that will be served by the initiative are Nolan, Bee, Cameron, DeMitt, Zavala, Fannin, Jasper, Lamar, and San Augustine. The program will also have support from College Access and Success organizations, College Forward, and the National College Access Network as it empowers AgriLife extension agents to help provide education, information, and coaching resources for students ranging from 8th grade through post-secondary. Administration recommends adoption of MOU with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. And we have Mr. Brock Fry and Ms. Denise Hilton here if you have any questions.
We have a recommendation from administration to approve the adoption of MOU with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Webb, second by Dr. K-Mac, from Dr. Van K-Mac. Any discussion? If none, all in favor show of right hand. All opposed, like sign. There are none, it carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Our next action item will be to consider and if appropriate, approve the JISD Campus Improvement Plan. Ms. Jocelyn.
Yes, sir. During the months of September and October, the district-wide Educational Improvement Council and campus site-based committees met to develop and revise the campus and district improvement plans. These plans will become working documents as the school year progresses and will assist all district staff members to focus their efforts as they work to achieve the district goals. Administration recommends that the board approve the campus plans as presented and the district plan as well as working documents.
We have a recommendation from administration that the board approve the campus plans and district plan as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Van Kamak, second by Mr. Stephen Martinez. Any discussion?
So these will be monitored quarterly, or how will they be monitored?
We're actually currently monitoring them monthly because we are working with our TIP plans, which you'll talk about in just a little bit, and working with the campus teams. Jasper Junior High is working on their academic focus to narrow that scope down. So those will be in the editing process continuing for the next 2 months. And Few Primary is focusing right now on behavior and discipline to get that under control based on the staff's expectations, and they're receiving training. So we're focusing there and continuing their academic goals. On the plan for learning, we monitor those in November, January, April, and June. So officially, those are the 4 months that they get monitored on plan for learning. But we will continue to monitor those monthly.
Only one that has, I think it's page 6 of 17. What is the Grace Dearborn training?
Which one do you remember?
Is that the performance objectives, 100% of the instructional staff will receive continued educational support in helping economically disadvantaged students. It's on page 17 of ours, maybe page 27.
It's the third page in the actual.
Where it was success factors.
That's Fuse.
Is that Fuse?
That's Few Primary.
Okay. That Grace Dearborn training, what is that consistent, what is that?
Mr. Riggers will assist
That was
you.
last year's training. We came in just to continue that, and Grace Dearborn is to be able to work with a variety of different types of students, training on how to be able to work with students from a variety of backgrounds and economic situations.
Is that a time-consuming training?
That was
done short term? Or?
Short term, but it's just an ongoing, when you have new teachers, but you always need to continue to be able to instruct them in it.
And I see some with our, that held with Cornell last year, so you'll be monitoring some of these?
Oh, yes.
I've seen on there.
We'll talk about those in just a minute.
Okay.
Can you tell me how much extra paperwork this is going to be once again on the teachers?
For the CIPs,
Yes.
the CIPs won't have extra paperwork on the teachers. This year, what we've done is we've turned that focus into a paper reduction. In fact, when it came down to creating and typing in all the CIPs, we did that in our office so that it did not take away from campus time from any of the campus staff.
What are we reducing?
We're reducing the amount of paperwork that they turn in, like they don't have to turn in samples of their work. We might have, instead of turning in a class set of documents to provide documentation, we might just take some random samples here and there. So it's not something that teachers are creating and bringing a portfolio or anything like that. We are being very selective. If it says on there that it's the principal's responsibility, it is the principal who's responsible for collecting that data, not the teacher.
On the view, on the go 2, performance objective 2, the Skyward daily attendance reports, talks about we're choosing one student from each classroom each month who has missed no more than 1 day to receive an incentive. What will those incentives be?
Mr. Rick?
We're actually updated that just a little bit. We had 400 and something. I thought, John, we really had originally had 500, it was 82A. We had 460 some odd students in the first grading period, that first 6 weeks, that did not miss a single day. And one of the things we can give food-wise is ice cream, and so we're going to have the little 3-ounce still of Bluebell ice cream that those students will receive as an incentive for that attendance and then we'll add in the second 6 weeks those who have had poorer attendance in the first 6 weeks. When they reduce it, then they'll have an opportunity to be able to earn that reward as well.
And we're communicating this to the parents by how?
Beginning of the year, we send out what's the and then when we announce it, we'll send this when they're getting it, because we just sent home the report card last Friday, so we'll be doing it in a week.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If none, all in favor of the motion, show of right hand. All opposed, like sign. There are none. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Our next action item will be to consider and, if appropriate, approve targeted improvement plan for the district. Ms. Stevenson.
Hello, good evening. Appreciate you having me back in this evening, and I will try to make this as clean as possible, but hopefully as informative as possible also. I might add in the campus improvement plans that Ms. Johnson just put before you, to remember that those are an annual requirement. Those are nothing new. They're required in the Texas Education Code, Texas Administrative Code, that every campus prepare and update a campus improvement plan every year. Now, the plans that we're going to talk about that you have in your board packet tonight are, the first one is the targeted improvement plan for the district. And these are exactly what they say they are. They're targeted. And of course, you know, the targeted being more specific, a more laser-like focus on the work that we're doing in the district, as well as if the next one will be the second plan after we take a vote, because it is an action item for the district plan and also for the campus plan at Parnell. But I wanted to explain to you a little background as to why we have to do a targeted improvement plan for the district when Jasper ISD was one of the very few in Region 5 that got a B on the new A through F accountability system. So, and that is just something I know that you as a board are very proud of. Dr. Hudson, all the administrators in the district, and I'm kind of proud to have been here during that time as well. So certainly kudos to the students, the teachers, the administration here in Jasper, and to the Board of Trustees. But when Ms. Matthews was here last month from Region 5 to go over your accountability, you might remember that there are 3 domains, and your overall rating was an 80, was a B in the new A through F accountability system. However, in domain 1, 2, or 3, if you have a D anywhere, even though it averaged out to a B, if you have a D in any of those domains, then you have to do a targeted improvement plan. And because we were a B, then we're able to just retain that plan locally, not submit it to the state. It is one of those plans that, should they call, do a random selection, which they do from time to time, then we have it on file. And certainly it's a working document, we can work through it as we can. So in this particular plan, and Stacey's going to advance the slides for us, what we're talking about here is that in academic growth for the district, it's actually in domain 2, and there were 2 parts of academic growth, and you got your most points in this entire system for Jasper ISD came in part B. But where we had some issues were in part A on overall student growth. And let me explain just a minute to you how student growth works. In fact, Stacey and I were in Houston today and went through a training on just this domain and picked up some really good pieces of information there. But basically, we have 2 indicators at high school, and that's those students that move from 8th grade math to Algebra 1 or English 1 to English 2. Those are the only 2 indicators. So there's just really just a very few indicators that count for student growth for a high school. Then for few, there is no student growth there per se, because the the first year the students take the state assessment is at grade 3. So we don't get that growth measure until they move from grade 3 to grade 4. And so we get the bulk of student growth at Parnell and at Jasper Junior High. So we, in English, and it's just measured in math and reading. So it's basically from grade 3 to 4 in reading, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and so on. And the same thing with math. And while we made, as a district, we made an F, it was a 60 on the raw score, it translated to a 58 on their scale score component. And so therefore, that's the reason that we're addressing this. We would need to address it anyway, because it's not exactly where we should be and where we want to be. But we did see a lot of growth in different areas, but we're working to focus that work more in the area of moving those kids along the continuum. So if you look at our, first look at the problem statement that's listed under the annual goal. What we stated there was, as a district, that the 2018 STAR EOC data showed too few students in Jasper ISD met the expected growth in Domain 2 of the A through F accountability system. And so we go to develop an annual goal, and our annual goal, like I said, average for language arts and English language arts and math was that we were at 60% average, so we're going to try to move that to 70%. And I think that's very doable, that we can have all of our students that are part of that system, grades 3 through English 2, actually grade 10. 70% of our students will meet or exceed the expected growth measure. Now, there's a lot of nuances in the academic growth. We want to grow all students. And there are even cases of students that may not meet the actual passing standard in STAR or EOC, but they show enough growth to actually get what we would consider to be expected growth. Or they may have, and that gives us 1 point in the system. Or if they have a more limited type growth, then we get a half a point. So the campuses have the data to know exactly where every student was last year, and to be able to actually click on a live link in either DMAC or in our secure system of TEAMTs to know exactly who those youngsters are, so that we're already targeting. What we want is, we don't want any students to go backwards. And so that's the piece that we're actually working on. And when we talk about a root cause, about why it is that, and this is really very typical in all districts, why it is that we may not grow a youngster a year's worth of academic growth, which is pretty much what we expect. That is due to really just not hitting that instructional rigor. We may just be teaching to the median of the crowd at the foundation, and not possibly not using effective data analysis to modify and adjust. You always hear me say that very often. It's not that we have trouble identifying which students we need to intervene on, but it's how to intervene. It's what strategies will work. And as well as I do with raising your own children, and maybe doing homework around the table at night, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. And so when you put 3,000 youngsters together, that's the task that we have in every single district that I serve. So in order to meet those needs of those individual students. So strategy is, and we're working on this continually in the PLC process. I actually went through the training this summer with Jasper in the PLC Institute here in the district, and I might add it's premier. The PLC work that's being done in Jasper is beyond. I'm currently serving 5 or 6 different districts and 8 different campuses, and the PLC that's going on here, the professional learning communities, bar none, is excellent. I have to say it's very good. So to incorporate a more collaborative teaching community that encompasses prescriptive data analysis and progress monitoring that addresses the use of best practices to intervene and impact the individual student growth. So that's what we're working on, and it takes on the face of many different pieces, many different collaborative efforts, and really, as I always say, just intervene on behalf of individual students, and doing our very best job with that. So you can see some of the activities, and what we've basically done on the PowerPoint tonight is to take that actual template that you have in your board packet and condense it down so that you can see the activities without having to read through that tiny print on that document. I think Stacy bolded the print, but it's still kind of hard to see. So none of those things there should be new to you, because you see and hear about those all the time through the various information that you're provided. But I certainly, we have the folks here that can answer the questions, or I can certainly help with that. In addition to that, I would say that this is a working document. We can go in and tweak it at any time. We're continually evaluating those campus improvement plans. So they in fact, the targeted plan marries up with your district plan. It marries up with the campus improvement plans, but it is more targeted and it is more focused. So that what we want to do is maximize our points. We want to maximize everything that we can in that A through F accountability system. Because this past August, whereas districts got an A through F rating in the new accountability system, we still were at met standard or improvement required at campuses, but this coming August, the campuses will get an A through F. And I think that, you know as well as I do, that's probably slightly more informative for parents. You know, they understand an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. So we have our work cut out for us to make sure that we perform the best that we can and to maximize the system. So that's the reason that we pick these particular things to focus on. And that's the work that I do, is to try to come in and say, okay, you know, here's the accountability system. Let's look and see what it is that we can do to maximize it. Certainly not all of the work that we're doing.
Let me ask you something. I've been very concerned about the lack of instruction time.
Instructional time.
Yes, ma'am, because so much of the time is being used on testing and collecting data that we're not, I see a lack of time to actually do the teaching, to actually do the instruction, when we're using a third of their time collecting the data, constantly testing, collecting. Are we not kind of going backwards there when we're trying to collect all this data and not giving the teachers the time that they need to actually teach in the classroom?
Well, it's sort of like an analogy for me might be if you're diabetic and you just continue to go and take your medicine across a period of 2 or 3, 6 months into a year, and you never stop and monitor, you know, your glucose levels, then what we're doing with the intermittent testing is, and I don't know the accuracy of a third of the time, but you are correct in that it is to become prescriptive on how we intervene on behalf of students. It does require that we progress monitor. We diagnose with the beginning of year instruments.
Absolutely. You've got to have those initial diagnoses and you've got to monitor.
Right.
I'm just very concerned that so many days, I've observed and I've asked and I've looked, that there's so many days.
Are you possibly referring to like mock testing for the STAR testing
I'm
or the
referring to every program we have. We have so many ongoing programs now, you know, that collectively we're not getting the instruction time that I believe is important
Well,
to further those students that need that extra instruction time, because we're using so much of the time testing and collecting data that there's not time to prescribe, get that perfect prescription for that child. You know, if we're like, okay, we have only 2 days between now and then to get in that prescription that we need to write for that child.
Well, you make a good point, and it certainly should not seem that we're hurried and trying to, you know, we make children anxious over, you know, the pieces that we do to do that progress monitoring. And in many cases, the assessments that they're designing at the campuses, they can take a quick look, you know, just I call it a dipstick, with, you know, 8 or 10 questions to determine whether or not a student has mastered a task. But that's certainly something that I will work to monitor this year with campuses. I will say that is a perception that is pretty widespread in obviously you have been a teacher, Mrs. Martindale, not speaking to you being a lay person, but it is, you know, you see it on Facebook a lot, you know, there's too much STAR testing, there's too much this, there's too much that. And I don't really join in those conversations because I don't personally believe that. And we're teaching the standards that are set forth by the state of Texas.
Absolutely, we want to
And
make
in
sure we're
order
teaching.
to know whether or not youngsters have mastered that, then we do have to progress monitor.
Absolutely.
So, but certainly we need to be minimal about it and yet do a really
Absolutely,
good
that's what I
job
said, yeah.
at
We
taking
need to
that
make sure that that is
distance.
a minimal amount of class time being taken for the monitoring,
Yeah.
so that the prescriptions to improve can be
Well,
put in place.
And if we're doing a really good job of our instruction, of our instructional piece and using best practices, then we certainly should be able to take that dipstick, then in our PLCs, make that monitor and adjust piece, and then get right back to teaching and increase that instructional rigor. And I think through the use of some of the things that we're doing this year with the think tanks and being very prescriptive on the campuses and changing up the way we're doing some of that intervention, we should be able to gain back. But we certainly don't want to waste any time
Absolutely.
at all.
Ms.
And,
Stevenson, I guess building on what Stephanie's saying, if I look at bullet 3 there's 10 different areas that we're going to train. How many of
Well-
those, I know I've heard names of several of them, so some of those though I think are new. So if we're spending our time, I'm assuming these are training the teachers. And then training them on that many, it seems like if you're, in the field that I'm in, when you're low in an area, you find 2 or 3, 4 at the max to focus on, and you drill down to those 4, and then that shows that improvement. Then you go on to the next thing, but we're adding, we got 10 different things. That's a large amount.
Well, with respect to the NWEA, we brought that was brought into the district last year, the MAP diagnostic inventory. Achieve 3000 is the reading inventory, and that was brought in last year. I was here when the presentation took place and observed it in the classrooms throughout the district. The Collins writing is a brand new piece to specifically address writing across the disciplines, across the content areas. I took a trip with Mr. Vickers and Mr. Davis back in December to look at that in another district, and you brought in Mr. Collins, that actually is the gentleman that developed that piece. That was brand new this summer, and that has been met with very favorably among teachers in the district. It's being used across the district. And the student data folders, that's just collecting student work is basically what it is, and having their information about their individual, it's like, again, going back to say a medical piece, it's like having, when you go to the doctor, they have all your information. When did you pass STAR? When did you not pass STAR? What other pieces, samples of your work, those kinds of things. So that's not something that actually is a training that teachers have to go to. We kind of build it in pieces. Lesson frame, that's the fundamental 5 basically, and the teachers have gotten some of that just ongoing, so it's not really brand new. Interventions are just strategies, that's sort of ongoing. Co-teaching, that's a model that's used, that we've incorporated through the inclusion model, special education. The think tanks, there was training done on that this summer. Some of the teachers in the district visited in Corsicana ISD. I made that trip with them as well. And in addition to early August, you brought in Dr. Kim Holcomb to train teachers, and I think that's being used, I don't know about high school, but it's being used, and I'm not certain about middle school either, or junior high, but few and Parnell for sure. And basically that's just small group instruction. Good teaching, good practices, best practices. You remember when you were in elementary school and some students were working in stations perhaps, and others were at the table with the teacher working on more fundamental skills, and then we'd rotate. That's think tanks, and that's really just getting better at us doing that. So, and Leap Forward is a system, a data system that's a free resource that if you've never gotten online and looked at Leap Forward, I would suggest that you do that because it's phenomenal in the resources that it has. So we really just, and we did a Leap Forward 101 in collaboration with Newton ISD back last spring, and in addition, Lead Forward came in this summer. So some of those were part of our in-service and will continue to be part of the in-service throughout the year. But I don't think, as a whole, I don't think that we're pulling teachers to do just huge pieces of training and starting over every year. The systems that have been put in place are those that are continual and should be able to be supported, whether I'm here or not, whether Ms. Willems is here or not. Those things are about best practices. And so I think what I think when I see a plan like this is, and when I'm helping to write this, is that someone at the Texas Education Agency decides to pull Jasper ISD's plan, and they want to call us about it, which we had that very thing happen the year before last in one of the floods at Newton, and I was the only person that they could get on the phone because the phones were out in Newton that day, and they were out of school. And they said, we want to pull their plan for the district, and we want to see it tomorrow. Thank goodness we had it all complete. So I think about someone else reading this plan and them being able to understand what it is we're doing. So maybe we might bombard with, listing the activities, but I don't think it is. I can see your point, but I don't think that it is quite as burdensome as it might sound, 10 different things separated by commas.
Well, I think that, when you look at the last bullet point, where it's a mentor program, we have a lot of those. We have
0 to 1 teachers.
0 to 1, but we have a lot that are new to our district also.
Yes.
So when you put that mentoring, then you put that bullet 3 with it there, it's kind of like an overload on that. And then I look at the one where, what is calendar monthly staff development? Staff development data deal the day kids don't go to school. And when I see
You have it in
monthly,
you have it in your 18-19 calendar this year.
Right.
That those are calendared in once a month, staff development days, and those are required days in there. I think you have one today, as a matter of fact, and then there's one coming up in November. And so that's another notation to the reader that reads this, that we do have in our calendar monthly staff development days to provide training, whatever it might be. I saw some of the training for today as far as, reading it on the calendar. I know there's work already going on for the planning for November.
So tell me where on the bottom line, when we look at the, just like the lady on she said last month that gave us on the bell curve, we're 83% economically disadvantaged. So then on your left side, our score was around 40. So when that bell curve comes down here, because we're way over here, is when we got our beat. So where are we going to get on that side from that 40 where you see us going? What's the realistic goal?
Well, I think we're looking
50%. I know we're saying 70% we meet or exceed, but where that is what I'm looking at is from, because just because we're economically disadvantaged, that gives us a beat. I want to see that raw score increase. So that's what we're here for, is that student.
Mm-hmm. Is for every individual student to grow, for no student to go backwards. And the piece that you mentioned that, some of this looks and can be overwhelming. I'm sure as a 0 to 1, even as a 5 or 10-year teacher, tenured staff, it can be overwhelming. It's a lot for principals to do. But I always remind myself that I personally don't have a problem with this because I consider myself professional staff. And in a profession, if I was an architect, if I was an engineer, if I'm an orthodontist, all of our lines of work require a lot of layering of professional knowledge and training, and we're required, it's a job that we're required to do each day when we come to work. I'm familiar with the field of accounting because my daughter's a CPA, and it's, there's a lot required of us to do the tasks that we should be doing as professional staff. So I would say that I know that we're providing support to those 0 and 1 teachers because our pool of potential applicants in Jasper ISD is, and Newton ISD, and Sparta ISD, and Brooklyn, all around us. That potential pool of applicants is not very large when they can go down to Beaumont or maybe even skip over to Houston ISD and be very select. I have a campus in Beaumont ISD that we're not fully staffed, and in the last 6 weeks, we've hired 10 new people. 10 didn't show up. All 10 didn't show up. And you know, for any of the real young people here, millennials, sign on the contract, I'm coming to work, and then boom, they get an offer from somewhere else, they're gone. That it means absolutely nothing to them, the blue ink, the signature, those kinds of things. So it is quite the task to secure quality professionals to come to work in the smaller districts and to be able to be competitive and